we are starting in 1 second. And I'm very happy to present Florian Kistner. And I'm really probably a happy guy here at JetBrains because I've seen your entire journey here at JetBrains since you joined quite some years ago. So Florian is going to be talking about his journey as he was graduating Technical University of Munich and then joining JetBrains and growing to be a team lead of the Kotlin multi-platform, which is really hard tech. So always impresses me. Florian, stage is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Florian Kistner. I'm the team lead of the Kotlin multi-platform tooling team. I want to talk about my journey a little bit. I think we all know this. The early stages of our careers can be stressful to navigate. What do I want? What's the best choice for me? Am I good enough? Will they take me? So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about my story, a path from an uncertain teenager to become a team lead at JetBrains. I think we all struggle with doubt at some point in our careers, and through my story, I hope to provide a few insights and maybe even help you, guide you in your careers, or maybe just offer some ideas how you can see your careers in a different light. So, but first of all, a short disclaimer. It's not really about me, right? And so I want to emphasize, my struggles might not compare with the ones that you have faced or are facing, and I don't claim to have all the answers. My goal is really simple here. I just want to use this opportunity to share some of my observation and to encourage you to focus on what's possible, what's out there, rather than where you are, maybe what's holding you back. I'll talk a little bit about my time at university, then how I joined JetBrains, and then finally how I became a team lead at JetBrains. So yeah, I mean, my story actually begins many, many years ago, all the way back in elementary school. Some of you may relate. It was when I first discovered that you could program computers. I was just fascinated. The idea that I could make this machine do things, I was just, it lit a flame in me, and I was hooked. So of course, after high school, I was eager to build cool things, make a difference in people's lives. So what should I do? I wanted to study computer science, but I wasn't quite sure. Was that the right choice for me? Like, I was very focused on computers at that point. So I wondered, would that be a bit too much? So what I thought were my better angels prevails, and I decided, you know what I should really do? I should try to balance my profound love for technology with something else. So I decided, okay, let's go for business informatics. Also, I was afraid university. Wouldn't that be way too theoretical? I wanted to build things. So in the end, I settled on an integrated dual study program that promised to combine both of these things, theory and practice. But yeah, this should be a fateful decision, something I struggled for a long time. Looking back now, this is something I don't regret, but it took a while to get here. And I mean, it wasn't so bad, right? I learned a lot. I did phone tech support. Okay, that part was not that great. I developed database tooling, all while getting paid. Life wasn't so bad. But I don't know. After I graduated in 2013, I just got the feeling that this wasn't it yet. This was around the time when I first encountered my first JetBrains product. I was working at Dativ at the time, doing good old C# WinForms development, when a colleague suggested I give this little plugin ReSharper a try. And okay, maybe you're not as excited about these things like I am, or maybe experience was different, but I was just blown away. There was this plugin, and it was refactoring my code. It was generating new code. It was telling me about problems I never knew that were in my code. I never felt so connected to what I was working on like I did then. But it almost seemed like surreal. Like, how do you even build such a thing? Like, somebody must have painstakingly re-implement the language semantics and then build something even on top of that. Like, how do you even do that? I certainly didn't feel equipped to build something like that. So to me, it kind of reemphasized, maybe, again, this wasn't it yet. So I decided, you know what, I really want to do a master's program. And I was working in Nuremberg at the time, so all my friends were telling me about all these cool things, TUM. That was a problem, though. Would I even be able to get into TUM? See, because I had chosen business informatics, I couldn't actually apply to a science program. I didn't meet all the requirements. So I did what I figured was my only shot. I applied for a master's in information systems. And, it worked. I was actually able to get in. But I had to take a full semester of bachelor courses to even be able to allow to come there. I also got to take some pretty other cool courses, like the excellent iPracticum lab course, where I kind of discovered my enthusiasm for mobile development. And where I also kind of learned that not all programming environments are alike, that there are big differences. Not everything is like when you do C# development with Upper. That felt quite different. Yeah. But let's fast forward a little bit to the end of my degree. And I was still working part-time as a C# developer when I first discovered the Roslyn compiler platform. So, I mean, if you're not familiar with Windows development, you might not know what that is. But Microsoft open sourced their compiler, their C# compiler in 2008, which was a big deal because up until that point, this was all proprietary tooling. There was no way to interact with any of that. But after they had open sourced it, suddenly anybody could build tooling based on this compiler technology, access the compiler smarts. And I still remember at Dativ, we used to have so many projects. The way you do this is in .NET development, you bundle your project into solutions, and then you open them in your IDE. That Visual Studio, Microsoft's IDE, couldn't even do all these projects. But by using these Roslyn APIs, I was able to very quickly build a tool that actually could open all these projects, and search for things, search for usages across all the code, and I realized how powerful it was. So I figured, you know what, this is so cool. I need to stick with it, and I decided, this is my shot. I should try to write my master thesis about it. So I started emailing professors. I must have sent out like about 3 dozens of applications, and at some point, I got lucky. I was able to go to Carnegie Mellon University for a master's thesis on exception handling support. But as always, like, be careful what you wish for, because I was just thrown into the deep end. Remember, I didn't have a full-on computer science degree. I had just studied information systems. So all of a sudden, so many new things were being asked of me: building tooling for actual users, conducting user interviews, navigating sometimes conflicting wishes of 2 professors. It was a lot. It was a very stressful time, all while I worked away in a windowless office below ground level. But I had done it. While I was previously just in awe, like looking at this ReSharper thing, I'd actually gotten my feet wet and built something. Not quite like ReSharper, yes, but I'd built something that was doing some cool things. And all while I had feared that my choice to initially go with business informatics, my choice to not attend like a proper full-on university, would hold me back, that this is just not something I would be able to achieve. But I found, for me, this wasn't actually the case. So this is kind of where I realized maybe it's more important to look forward than to look backwards, like to where you come from, what you're lacking. So yeah, there I was, thesis handed in, about to graduate, feeling good. I had done this cool stuff with developer tooling. But what was going to be next? Should I just go back to my previous job? I mean, I had experimented with this Roslyn stuff. Maybe I could continue that somehow. Not really what they did, but maybe. Maybe I could become a software architect. Maybe they could have some other cool position for me. But was that really what I wanted? Was I making a real impact and like building the cool things that I thought I would be, that I set out to? But I don't know, where would I even be able to do this, right? I mean, most big IT firms, we all know it, they're based out of the US. I knew there was one based out of the Czech Republic, but you know, what was available here in Germany, in Munich? And yes, you know, this conclusion may be very obvious for you right now, but I actually did not know that JetBrains had a Munich office. If not for like some sleepless night when I was Googling and searching Wikipedia, I would never find out that there was a Munich office. But I realized when I did, okay, this is it. This is the one chance I have to actually work on this that I experienced. So I decided to apply to the app code team. And you know, I was terribly nervous at the interview. Like, was I going to be good enough? Again, like, you know, here I was just, you know, information system student. You know, yes, I, you know, had to experiment a little bit, but would that be enough to actually to get into this company? And then further, you know, like, what would the company culture be like? Would I be able to fit in? Would it be like very, you know, top down? How would it be being surrounded by a bunch of Russian-speaking colleagues? Would I feel like an outsider? Would I feel like I couldn't really be part of anything? But, you know, things went how they went, and I got an offer in the end. And I realized a lot of the fears that I had were unfounded. Where, you know, I feared that there was this company culture that was going to be very top-down, heavy-handed. I actually found a culture with a really strong emphasis on personal growth, responsibility, and autonomy. And where I was, you know, wondering if there are going to be language barriers, I felt a very welcoming environment where everyone was eager to speak English with me and was welcoming. So, but of course, not everything ever works out the way it should be. So when I arrived, the teams had prepared some tests, and I still very vividly remember this because it was quite stressful at me, believe me. I still, the words are in my ears. The team lead had said something along the lines of, you know, oh, we prepared a few tasks for you, can like very quickly take care of, get a nice flow going, and then, you know. And I guess I didn't really listen to any of that. So I just went and I picked the task that I said like it sounded the most exciting, the coolest. And so there I was, you know, slaving away for 2 months trying to finish this task, and until I could finally publish my code review, all while agonizing, like, why am I not able to finish this? Like, one task a day, and here I was working 2 months on it. Once again, a lot more was being asked of me. And, you know, for those of you who have worked at startups, this may not faze you, but I have to admit, I wasn't quite ready to like how inclusive, how large the roles were at JetBrains, how they were being interpreted, like how much would actually be part of my job description. I wasn't quite prepared for that. But in the end, you know, I found a very open-minded group of people. I put in cool hackathon project, and you know, in the end, I did feel like I was accepted. And it wasn't long before I ended up being promoted to senior software developer. But, you know, how did I get here? Like, I mean, to me, the thing is, I gave it a chance. I decided to step out of my comfort zone, and that by staying curious, I had found a great environment to grow and a company where I really feel supported. You know, even in times like last year when the management had decided to cancel our product, to sunset our product app code that we've been working on. But yeah, getting back to my story. How did I become team lead? Well, I mean, I was enjoying my work. I enjoy trying to, set some new accents, drive a few things on my team. But I was kind of looking for a new challenge. I had joined the 20% project, which is something we do here at JetBrains, where you can work one day a week on something else. I'd attended a few conferences on like leadership topics, something we get to do for personal growth at JetBrains. And it actually happened. I was offered to lead the Kotlin multi-platform tooling team in a different direction. But how would we get there? How could we actually be successful? What did that actually mean for us? We had, some previous attempts to work with some other teams. They weren't always successful. So we'll be able to even get enough support from all the involved teams. It seemed very scary to take on this much responsibility, especially when I had never done that before. And it took me a long time to realize that how I could shape things and the impact that I could have on the team would help with taking care of, dealing with some of these things. So in the end, I finally agreed to take on these responsibilities. And yes, in the beginning, it was quite challenging how to balance all these different aspects. Once again, so many new responsibilities that I've never had before. How to balance the technical leadership with all the people management. There were some tough decisions earlier this year. We had to scrap a part of what we're doing, what we're working on, and completely start over. It wasn't easy, but in the end, I realized I have a great team that I can lean on, and it took a bit, but it seems like I'm finally getting to the point where I've arrived and I can start to shape things. So I think sometimes we just need to jump, and we need to have the confidence in ourselves and embrace the influence that we have instead of being distracted, like what are the aspects that you can't change. So yeah, this was my little path, like my little story, starting at university, or how I managed to navigate university, joining JetBrains, becoming a team lead. As I said, the whole point of this is I want to encourage you to look forward, not backwards, to think about what you want and what might be possible instead of thinking about what did not go well, where you maybe fell short. And don't let the uncertainty paralyze you. If there's something you're really excited about, go for it. And if you're not excited about what you're doing at the moment, use this opportunity today. Use this long night of JetBrains to see what else might be out there. So with that being said, we are hiring at the moment. So do check us out. Like, there's some information about our open positionings on how it all works to join JetBrains. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot. That's an awesome journey. Do we have some questions? Very good. I'll try to run with the mic. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, thank you, Florian, for sharing your journey. My question would be, you mentioned you in JetBrains, you have like a kind of 20% sort of research, R&D time or something you can use for interesting things you want to do besides your actual, I guess, production work. How do you really enforce this, or how do you really make sure that people do get this 20% time?
I mean, this is not something that we like assign to everyone, that you're required to spend 20% on something else. This is an opportunity that you can take advantage of. So I think in general, we have a pretty good track records. Like, this is something that's very dear to us. So we don't usually have situation where the team lead would say like, no, you can't do this, right? We very clear this is something that everybody gets to do. And of course, sometimes there can be patches where there's a lot of work, a lot of things to do for some deadline. So maybe then we will talk about like, okay, maybe it makes sense for you to start a bit later on this project. But I think our goal here is definitely everybody gets to do this, and yeah, management is definitely on board with this. So if there's anybody watching from JetBrains who doesn't get to do this in their team, reach out to Max. He has offered before. He will talk to your manager and figure out a way to make this happen. So this is something that everybody gets to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for your presentation. First question is, how much do you earn? No, just kidding. But yeah, I find it very interesting. Might be a bit older for. I mean, I found very interesting your presentation. I think I had a similar path like you. Like sometimes you don't really know what's next, but now I'm in a different path. Maybe that you might be in the future. For me, it's now like, what's next? Like you come to a point and then you're not sure if you want to try something else. And I dare to ask now, because you mentioned the topic careers, how is it the interview process to get on board in JetBrains? Do you have like a complicated process, or just if you could explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly where this will take you. Like if you scan this QR code, or just remember the URL, or just find your way through the website. I think it's even on the back of your badges. Okay. In general, to summarize it is, we do kind of a series of interviews. Like a lot of times it first starts with a little chat, right? To figure out, okay, where are you at? What do you want? Is what you want something that we can offer you at JetBrains? Like, is there like a general fit, right? For what you're looking to get out of this, and maybe what kind of position that we're looking for. And we will have an actual technical interview, where we might ask you some questions, talk about your experience, and then a big part of the hiring process at JetBrains is a test task, right? So I'm not quite sure what kind of role you're looking for. I'm thinking a little bit of a developer role right now. That's where I'm coming myself from. It's for us, we think it's much better to be able to see something that you actually develop, like how you approach something, than to like see you solve some lead code exercises on a whiteboard, right? It's very stressful for you, and it doesn't really tell us anything about what you can actually do. That's why we prefer this test task. So yes, like this is can be a fairly big time commitment, especially for like a senior software developer role. It's a sizable project. But yeah, we feel like that's kind of the best compromise of like you being able to really show what you can do, and us getting a feel of how you approach things, how it works for you, and like how I think this is a kind of a general rule of thumb that we have. That's certainly something that how we're handling it to my team is when we give you a test task, it's kind of our commitment to say like, we'll definitely give you feedback on it, right? We'll definitely have a follow-up meeting on you. Even if for some reason we feel like it's not quite working out, we'll give you feedback and tell you what we thought of it. So it's not like a waste of time for you, right? And yeah, then we would have a final test task review, maybe ask some follow-up questions about, why did you do it a certain way? How did you approach this? And we would make our decision.
So as I'm holding the mic, what was your test task? I heard that a lot of software engineers at JetBrains had to design the file system. What's your case?
No, I didn't have to do a file system. My case was a interpreter and editor. Like I was giving some kind of small grammar, and then I kind of had to design the full pipeline from like parsing the little toy language to actually interpreting the language, building like a little nice editor where you can see the results of the computations and kind of making it all fit together.
Questions? Yes.
Hey, thanks for the good story. 2 questions. First, did you meet your expectation in this position? Because it's not the same as to write code and manage the team. And the second, what was
specifically about the team lead position? Is that what you asked?
Yeah. And the second, what was the process to change the position to team lead? And did you agree with HR department if you don't meet your expectations that you will go back to the previous position?
So I mean, I stepped up as team lead last year in June. So I'm now about a year in. Just to give you some context, and did I meet my expectations? As I said, like maybe, and maybe this is different for some other people, I was not entirely prepared, like what this actually meant, right? So I had to do some growing to fit into the job, but I would say yes, I definitely it is what I wanted to get out of this role. I found the exciting part for me in this role, and to be honest, you were asking about HR being involved. This was not really something for me where HR was too involved. This was more a discussion that I had with my boss at the time, or the department lead of the team at the time. And it was, to me, it was important to like make sure, like, what are the expectations, to understand, like, what am I getting into, right? Because I was a bit self-conscious whether I would be able to do it. So a lot of time we spent talking about what do we want, what should I be bringing to the table. Yeah, so we didn't actually discuss me going back. That's not a contingency we planned for. But I will say this, this is a very common practice at JetBrains. Like, this is by no means like a one-way street that if you don't make it, then that's it, and you have to leave the company in disgrace. Like, this commonly happens. People try it out for themselves to step as a team lead, and then if it doesn't work for them, maybe they'll switch to a different role and try something else. So I would definitely say at JetBrains, that's not considered like a failure if at some point you decide to move to a non-team lead role after that. Does that answer your question?
So I guess I have a kind of inside perspective to that. So how much time do you still code during the day?
It varies a lot. Like on a daily basis, it's hard to say. There are a lot of days where I don't code, especially at the moment. We're doing a lot of hiring. So of course that's time intensive because you have to like meet with people for hours on end. It has changed significantly, right? Where I was previously I was building features, having individual tasks that I contribute to. Now I focus more on I would say enabling tasks. Like, okay, maybe there's something I can figure out and I can help the team with. When we kind of introduce some new technical dependencies, that's something that I did. I figured out, okay, how can we make this, how can we integrate this into our product, kind of try to figure out the broad strokes so that then everybody on the team had an easier time getting started with it. So that's how my role has changed a little bit.
Thanks a lot. Questions? Over there first, and then.
Hi. How have the new AI tools impacted your work or your colleagues' works? Are you allowed to use ChatGPT? Is it the gray zone, or any of the other new tools?
I mean, this is still like a rapidly developing area, obviously. We are looking at this with a lot of interest, and we don't have like a blanket ban at JetBrains that you cannot use these kind of tools under any circumstances. Of course, we kind of try to play through what are maybe the things that we want people to allow them to do. Maybe what are the things where we're a bit more hesitant. Obviously, right? Personal data, right? We don't want to feed any personal data into something like the large language models, right? So we have some rules, and beyond those, we can use them. We just shipped, I think, our first feature ourselves using AI in Fleet. So we are starting to provide this to our users, and I mean, at JetBrains in general, we have a big emphasis on dog fooding, right? So if we put out a tool, then of course we're also going to use it ourselves. So in that sense, I think generative AI is here to stay for JetBrains software developers.
And a second question, you mentioned that you're currently doing a lot of hiring. So in the current economical situations, many big companies actually let people go. What sets JetBrains apart that you're currently doing a lot of hiring?
I don't know if I have a very good answer to this from my specific position. I mean, different companies are differently impacted by the economic conditions, and of course, also the situation is different in different teams, right? Like in general, I would say the situation is quite good at JetBrains. As you can see, I checked yesterday, we have about 150 open positions at the moment on our website. It's fluctuating a little bit, so don't get angry at me if it's a little bit off, but should be roughly around that. So we are definitely hiring. A lot of teams are hiring.
I can probably try to elaborate on that. JetBrains is growing, and it seems that it will be growing, and we need people to help JetBrains grow. And at the same time, a lot of companies we see lays off from, they are public companies, and there are some specifics about layoffs in public companies, which has something to do with the stock price and expectations of the investors. JetBrains is a private company, and the situation is very different in that regards. Was it? Oh, up there.
Thank you very much. So maybe circling back a little bit to the team lead's position. So you mentioned that you code less now, and you were full-on senior software developer before. So how do you cope with or deal with these change to more business-oriented tasks? And a little bit personal question from me as well. Did your studies in information system assist you in that a little bit, or in general with the new tasks of a team manager?
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was saying, like looking from where I'm right now, I have started to appreciate a little bit that I did have some of this background. I don't think this is necessarily a major roadblock, right? If you went full on computer science, I don't think that precludes you from going into this kind of position. Yeah, I mean, in the end, there's still a big difference between having learned something in university and actually having to do some things yourself. So yeah, at first, it's always a little bit of a learning process. How do you actually do that, right? How do you actually do a hiring process? You know, how do you make the candidates comfortable in the interview process, that you actually get to see who they are, what they're made of, and you're not, you know, just scaring them into tunnel vision or something like that.
Thank you. Over there. So you folks make it difficult because you like every time the question is from other side of the room.
I was actually waiting by purpose that someone else on the other side of the room. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, so one question. Let's say like for a software engineering position, yeah, probably you're looking for someone who's really skilled like in coding. But apart of that, what kind of values are you looking when you have like a candidate? What values are for the company important for a software engineer to have?
I mean, that's a very broad field, right? We can start with some kind of basic things, right? Personal responsibility, you know, taking pride in your work, things like that, right? Sometimes they're a bit hard to grasp. As I kind of try to explain, one thing that is really important at JetBrains is we do put a lot of emphasis in the personal responsibility of people. So for us, it's very important that we can kind of, that you will be able to kind of take charge of your little area or something that you're responsible. If that makes sense, right? So, and when we get this feeling, then we do like to give people a lot of autonomy and kind of let them show us what they can do, like give them the freedom to really be a part of or do something great. So that's an important thing. So that's, not everybody is made from this kind of cloth, that they can work very independently, can develop ideas on their own, push for things. So this is something that I would say I definitely certainly pay a lot of attention to during the selection process.
Okay, very small like follow-up question. So let's say the coding part is a bit lackluster, but you see like this candidate is personality-wise super good fit, and you think like potentially, okay, maybe this candidate can evolve over time, the coding potential, so to say. So what kind of
preference do you have, like more for the personality aspect or more like for the coding aspect?
I'm not sure I would characterize it this way, that these are like two things you can like trade off upon each other. Like one thing is we have a lot of different roles, right? So if you apply for a senior software developer position, there will be certain expectations on your technical expertise, right? But we also have, like, we're doing this, we're doing internship programs. We're trying to get students from TUM, for example, to come and join us. And that's one common path that people get into JetBrains, that they start with an internship project, then the team gets an impression of how they work, whether they fit into the team, and a lot of people stay and actually end up becoming junior software developers. So if your coding skills are a bit shaky, then maybe this could be a great option, right? Yeah, I mean, if I understand you correctly, yes, I think that in the end, probably I focus a lot on personal, on the soft skills, right? You have to be the right kind of person, and then we'll look at, do you match like the technical qualifications for the positions. That's my answer. I don't know if I can give a really general answer here, because every team might set their focus a little bit different, and also maybe the requirements are a little bit different depending on the position and the team and what the team is trying to accomplish, right? But maybe this gives you a rough impression.
Yeah. Thank you.
In the back.
Thank you. Over there. Oh, yeah. And then here.
My question is, commend someone who is just graduated or is going to be graduated recently soon in the area of computer science or data science to build a non-academic career. Would you recommend them to do a PhD, or it's not like a good choice?
I think that should probably foremost be a personal choice. Like, I think it depends on what kind of person you are. Like, are you the kind of person who's longing to dive this deeply into the academics and to actually do a PhD? Then I wouldn't want to be that person who tells you, no, please don't do that. Please just, come and apply. But if you're not that kind of person, then I don't think you necessarily should pursue a PhD, if that makes sense. So I think that should be your decision. We work with both kinds of people. Like, whether you have a PhD or not, we're happy to see your application. And in the end, it's about what you bring to the table, right? Like, what can you do? And the PhD is not really something that we filter for or really look at too closely, right? It tells us a little bit about your story, like how you got here, and that's how I would summarize it.
And just as a follow-up question, and no formal education, no like beyond the school level, no computer science at all.
It depends, right? I mean, I think the short answer is correct. Like, just if you coming straight out of high school, or you have worked in the industry for a long time, but you're really good at what you're doing, I'm not going to reject any application just because it doesn't say bachelor or it doesn't say master or anything like that on your application, right? So again, it's about what you bring to the table. As I said, if we look talking about like a senior software developer position, we do have certain technical expectations, and it helps to understand some theoretical foundations. But maybe you're the kind of person who doesn't learn well in university, that learns better on your own, and maybe you have all this background, then I don't see any reason why not to look at your CV.
Is there maybe one question also regarding the different positions and jobs? So you started as a developer, then you went to senior developer, and then now to team lead. So it's like I would say, kind of typical way to the top, right? What if you, for example, you're working in a Kotlin team, and after 3 years you say, okay, I cannot see Kotlin anymore. I will jump off the roof. I don't know. And you want to switch to, for example, a machine learning focused team. Is there a way internally to change positions in that way?
Yes, of course. I mean, I mentioned the 20% projects. Like a lot of times how this happens internally is that people will look for a 20% project because they're interested in a certain topic and they'll be working on this a little bit, right? And then they get a feeling like, is this really what I like? Is this something I want to have more of? And this can be like a good starting point to me. Like, okay, let's flip this around. Let's say like 80-20 the other way and see if I'm, cut out for this or if this is more to my liking. And then people regularly transfer teams. And that's something we try to actively encourage people to think about maybe moving on to a different team at some point. Because a lot of times it's easy to like get into this perspective, right? You know your subsystem really well, and you've been working on it for a few years, so you're like in your zone. And it helps to sometimes kind of break out of it a little bit and to get a different context and to reorient yourself. So I think in general, we try to encourage people to do this, right? We're not going to force anyone to change the team if they're not ready for it or if they don't want to. But yeah, so definitely, like we have an internal like job portal where we post positions. So yeah.
Again, maybe one follow-up regarding this. Would you say the projects are location-based? Like if you're the multi-platform Kotlin team, is it located in Munich mainly, or are there different?
Excellent question. We are very distributed. Like there usually is no such thing as one location for any team. Like, I don't know, like it used to be a bit more, but these days, I'm not sure there's any team who's literally just in one location. So we have great conferencing setups. Most teams are distributed anyway. So that's not a problem. Like you can join a different team. We have quite a few people who work like completely remotely. Those tend to be obviously a bit more senior people. Yeah, I don't think location is going to be an issue at all.
Thank you.
Thank you for great questions. One more.
A follow-up question to that one. How much do you come to the office now after Corona? How much has that bounced back? Or yeah.
I think it has bounced back a lot, right? We don't have like an office mandate that we require people necessarily to come in. So there are some people who don't come in that often. But I mean, you have seen the office now, you've looked around, you've tasted some of our food. We try to have there are a lot of perks here in the office and a lot of good reasons to come here, to be social with your colleagues. So I would say, yeah, of course, shortly after COVID, it was much more quiet in the office, but this has completely bounced back in my experience. It's busy in the office, but again, it's not a requirement. And maybe that was part of your question. Like we do tend to have very flexible working hours, right? So if you, even if you're fairly new to a team, right, but you would like to work from home a day, maybe you're getting a delivery or whatever, maybe you want to watch your cat, it doesn't matter. Like we can be like very accommodating, very flexible in this regard.
Thank you. So Florian, what is the main reason you come to the office?
The food is a pretty good reason. I mean, I do like the social aspect too, being able to strike up conversations, right? I mean, we all had to learn how to do this differently with COVID, and I think we have a pretty good conference set up to make that all possible. But I do actually have like having face-to-face conversations, so it's an important aspect too. Yeah.
I expected that it's going to be air conditioning given today's temperature, but I guess we need it just for 1 week.
I guess I was not on message. I'm sorry.
No, that's right. That's right. There is no right or wrong answer. Okay, do we have one last quick question, or are we good? Are we good? Yes, we actually tortured Florian with questions for quite a long time. And thanks a lot.
That's what I'm here for.
Thanks a lot for all the answers.
Yeah,
and that was a pleasure.
Thank you all for coming.